And hello again, folks. It is I, Kamikaze, here to bring you some more hopefully helpful news for you. If you found this, you were looking for why isn't my graphics card being used to its fullest potential? My processor and graphics card aren't being used to the maximum. Why can't I get more frames from this and so forth? And before anything right now, the reason why it does that is not because of your hardware, it's actually the software. Like in the case I'm showing right now is I opened up Valorant. We're going to go and just open up the shooting range. No big deal. And if we look here, the task manager, it shows that I'm not using very much of either, but give it a moment and it will pop up. Okay, there we are. Play Raise, because I play Raise usually. So you already know it's doing 33% and 36%. And I know you want to use more. But I will get to the technical stuff after this if you're wanting to stay that long. As of right now, there's nothing you can do in this case. If you're on a laptop, there's definitely nothing you can do. I will provide some solutions after the explanation, because hopefully it will give you reason as to it. But you're going to have to get a little technical when it comes to that. So if you have no idea what you're doing, I wouldn't mess with anything. Just realize that it's the game's fault, not you. And a way I can show this is, you can see them at 281 frames, but that's because I set it to maximum there. But if I move back here, you see it drops down to like 200-ish. And to also show you that you're getting what is known as a CPU bottleneck. And a lot of people think the bottleneck is when you max out your processor. That's not always the case. In this case, if I go over and go to details, find Valorant Win64, because that's the program itself, and I remove half the processors from 8 to 15. And yes, that's 16 processors because it counts 0 as 1. You'll notice I didn't really lose anything at all. It's because the computer, Valorant, is not using all of the cores. It doesn't know how. Because if I go back over here, it still shows the same amount being used, which is essentially about a third of my processor. And I gave it option to go to half of it. Moving it back to where it was, I gained maybe, I don't know, 10 frames, maybe less. I don't even think I gained anything there. So that's why it sucks. It means that your processor can't output enough data to your graphics card. So it's not your graphics card fault. It's not your processor's fault. It's actually the game design's fault. So there's nothing you can do about it except for torment the people who make the game. I'm using Valorant because it's a prime example of like the latest and greatest kind of games coming out, and you wonder why it's not able to do so. The game engine is only designed to use graphics quality, multi-threaded rendering. So it tells you to, use this for if you have a great processor, but it doesn't tell you how much it actually is using. Since it's not using all the threads available, it can't output that much data to your graphics card. That's it. I'm going to get into technical stuff now. And it's going to involve overclocking and better hardware. If you can't do either of those, I wouldn't recommend, if you have no idea what you're doing, to overclock, because you could just blow up your computer, and that's not my fault. So if you want to learn to overclock, you're going to have to go to like other tutorials and stuff. Because it's just flat out saying that the game is at fault. Now I'm moving on to it. So things you can do to increase your FPS with the hardware you have now is to overclock. By overclocking your processor, you're allowing more data to go to your graphics card, allowing you to get more frames. But obviously there's always a limit. Like my processor, I can go up to 5.15 safely. And the problem I have is I don't want to run my computer at, 80 to 100 Celsius in fluctuations for the rest of my life. I'd rather keep it a bit lower. That is the best way of getting more. Or you upgrade your processor to a faster one. The higher the gigahertz, the better, to give yourself more frames. But, you're still not going to use all of your graphics card. I have a 9900K and I have a 2080 Ti, and this is what I'm getting. If that gives you an example. I have a powerhouse here, but I can't use it for this game because it doesn't allow it. The other thing which will give you, and I'll put this as the best way I can explain it, is that you can overclock your RAM or get faster RAM. In that case, you can increase, I would say, the minimum amount of frames. Like you see where it's like saying 210, maybe it will jump up to 220. It's not a big deal. It's not worth like breaking the bank over trying to get the fastest RAM out there. So you can get a frame jump from both of those. My recommendation is that if you can afford it, get a faster processor and overclock it to get the most you can out of it. If you don't have the money to do so, then try and overclock what you have if it's overclockable. Like Intel processors, it has to have a K to know that it's unlocked. When it comes to RAM, you have to know what you're doing to speed up your RAM through overclocking. And as I said, I'm not going to be responsible for blowing up your computer. If you want to know how to overclock and stuff, there's 1,000,001 guides online to teach you how to do so. I know this isn't information you really wanted to know, but it's the information that exists. And I'm waiting until the end of the video to tell you that I spent weeks and months trying to figure this out and trying to find a way of doing it, and there isn't in some games. Some games there is, some games there isn't. In this case, like Valorant or a lot of other first-person shooters or other games, depending on the engine that they're built on, don't use all your cores, which means it can't send enough data to your graphics card. I hope this helped. If it did, or if you have questions, please leave them in below. I try to answer all the questions I can. Other than that, if you want to see more of my tutorials or helpful videos, like button, subscribe. Want to see more, that's always great. We have a Discord if you want to stop on by and say hello. It's a very nice small community. Other than that, I will catch you all in the next video that I end up doing.